Okay, my outstanding friends, Roger once again, and pointing to this saying Earth's first known giant was as big as a sperm whale. This is December 23rd, 2021, a couple days ago, and I say, au contraire. All right, these are mud fossils. I discovered these 10 years ago. This is a goose head right here. That's the feathers patterns in the goose's head. I mean, that's just where they are. Now, this is collagen. It turns into what they call feldspar. Inside is basalt, and that's where the neck and all of the bloody tissues are inside. And I understand the process and why this happened and why they did not rot and turned into exactly perfectly specimens. This is the fingernail of a gigantic fingertip. And I have, the other side has fingerprints, and I took that off as well. Here they are right here. That's the fingerprints. You see that? One fingerprint ridge is the width of my thumb. And this is, it's gigantic. I mean, and they peeled right off just like that. It's about this thick. That's the skin on the guy's finger. And that are the sweat pores. And that's what it is. And I took up inside and drilled out and got the blood samples and sent them off. And I'll show you the DNA reports right here. Here's the DNA reports. And there was 3 samples sent. And 2 of them were gigantic humans. And 1 of them was a regular long R size, and all 3 of them came back human DNA, and it was a very sophisticated test. And this was, I think, the earliest test on ancient DNA, or certainly on human ancient DNA. And excellent quality sequence was obtained for the DNA sequence obtained for the 36-inch tip, that gigantic one I just showed you, that huge-looking thing. And the lung. The other tip was not quite as good, but all 3 of them had the same, DNA in them. 2 of them were heavy and excellent quality. The 3rd one, not so good. But it was definitely, no question, it was a human, but not as pronounced. And that's what it was, Homo sapien mitochondrial B gene and D loop region. And that mitochondrial means the mother's side. And this was all done, and I talked to the people at the lab, and they just want to be sure that you understand, I was the one that extracted the samples and sent them off. They were the ones that analyzed them. They stand behind their results, but they can't stand behind who found those samples. I did. And I can guarantee you that they were absolutely pristinely extracted from literally bloody spots. And I'm not kidding you, literally bloody spots. And if you think you can't get blood out of a rock, you've got a lot to think about. Because you can't find a rock without blood in it, basically. Okay, so they say the biggest creature in the world was this creature right here, a fish-looking thing. Now, as big as a large sperm whale at more than 17 meters, was 55 feet long. The newly named Los Nugurugum. It's the largest animal yet discovered. Where did he come up with these names? From that time period, on land or in the sea. They think this is the biggest creature. In fact, it was the first giant creature to ever inhabit the earth that we know of. I've been showing this stuff for 6 years, and they refuse to look. Look at this. All right, I discovered mud fossils 10 years ago. And this is and I understand everything about them now, as much as it can possibly be understood at this point. And these are the feather pattern of a goose's head. And this goose died in the Great Flood, just as everything did that I have here on my property. One side is flat, and it died like that. After the flood, it dried out. Now, the reason they were protected was because the flood was not regular just water, it was hot water, and it actually cooked them. And this was all recorded in ancient history by Velikovsky. I mean, he did all the research on it and dug up all these information. Everywhere around the world, same stories. 1500 BC, Venus almost hit Earth, boiled oceans, literally boiled them, and the Earth fractured from inside. All the volcanoes erupted on Earth. And this is the result. It cooked some of these and turned them into rock after they dried out. That is a fingertip. That's a fingertip, and it's 30 inches long approximately, maybe even a little longer. And that's the pad where your finger, back of your finger bone rocks against the other one. This is the finger nail. All right, and you're talking about a big fish. This is a human, and this is DNA that's tested already. So don't tell me it's not real. All right, now let's go back and, whoops. Okay, friends, check this out now. You see, that is the vein side, and that's the artery side. This is a tendon assembly, and I'm going to back this out so you can see the whole thing. And you see, this is the feldspar part, and then we're into the basalt part, which is the, the tough spot. Now, I have the microscope up above there looking down. This is what I'm looking down at, is the tendon mat, which is the blood. I got to turn this light off so that we can see this up in the upper. That's what the tendon mat looks like under there. And it's just solid blood. Hold on, let me bring this thing up a little bit. And I'm going to play around with the microscope so you can see in different places on this thing. Now, let me just change the lighting a little bit. You see that? That's a wet, bloody mat, and I mean it is bloody. The whole thing is bloody. Bloody all the way up, see? Now, you're going to see little black spots here and there, which is the vein blood. Whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong control here. See? It's all bloody. And it's just a mat. Now, let me see if I can find something else. Oh, I'm going to show you what the anchors look like. Hold on. Let me find one. Here we go. Now, this is what the actual anchors look like inside the ball. You see how tough that stuff is? Look at that. Let me back this way up so you can see the whole thing at once. See that? That's one of these tendon balls. Look at how gnarly that thing is. You see that? That is anchored into flesh, and they can't pull out. That's what a tendon is. It's just not supposed to go anywhere. Now let me see if I can come in any closer with that. Let me tweak up the light a little bit. Well, you go down, you can see, when you go down, you can see where different colors represent different types of materials. Some of them are really tough, and some of them are bloody. The black is the vein blood, and the red is the arterial blood. This is just feldspar. Now, let's look at I'm going to point down to what we were looking at. And here's what we were looking at right there. Now, let's back this out of here and take a look at it in the light. And I will show you what I was just showing you. Alright, that was the tendon ball that I just showed you, all that gnarly stuff. Up here was the wet, bloody surface, the mat that I showed. There's a tendon ball right there. See that little anchor? It goes right in there. You can actually see a round spot. They're all round. Wherever they lock these things in, they're round. Now, here's was the vein, which was the black spot, and there's the artery. The arteries drain out because there's no clamps in them. The veins, which I scratched out of here, that's why it's white looking. But if I put some water on here, you'll see they change quickly. You see it turn black again. That's red blood, and it's, anyway, that's what these are. That's a tendon assembly. And up there was muscle. It turns into muscle, and then all these tendons lock in all these different places. and they hold so you can pull your muscles back and forth. Now, this is one of the samples that was on this DNA test. This is one right here. This is a fingertip. Now, here's what I want you to look at. Look at this round spot right here. Take your time. Let me home in on it. Look at it closely. Just take your time, and I'm going to point out very clearly what we're looking at. That is the dead center of this circle. Take your time. All right, look at it. You see a circle there? That's a circle. Now, if I move it sometimes in a little bit of a light shadow, you can see it better or worse, but I hope for better. That's pretty obvious. Now, what I want to show you is that not only is that a circle, and big deal, so what is the circle? Well, what it does is it holds onto these tendon balls. And I'm going to show you an anatomical in 1 second. This is exactly the same circle from one of my eroded fingertips. I have the hand, and I have fingertips and knuckles and all kinds of things from this particular giant, which was DNA certified and CAT scan, which I will show you uno momento. All of these little pockets. This is an apical tuft. They had balls locked in there and then straps running all the way down. Let's go take a look at the anatomical. But don't forget, that's the circle. And that's this right here. And it goes right through the hand. See this side? It's right there. See? And all of these things run down all the way back. That's the pads you have on the bottom of your finger too. And this is a knuckle, a thumb, because the bone is offset. You see the bone is way over here, and just this little piece is here. I broke that off after the CAT scan. In the CAT scan, this will still be here, and you'll be able to see one side is black and the other side is red or white, actually, in the CAT scan. Anyway, that is the same apical tuft, because there's a ton of balls coming. That gives you the ability to do all kinds of things with your finger. And boy, they're tough when you pull your fingertips and you grab things and pull like that. That's just amazing, how the strength that you have in your fingertips. And it's all related to these little tendons that feed into that apical tuft, which is this. And it has that little spike on the bottom, see it? A little cut. All right, let's go look at it in the anatomical. But this was DNA tested. Well, let's look at the CAT scan first, and then we'll look at the anatomical. Okay, so we've seen the DNA report. That goes back 6 years ago. And I can't get anybody to look at it. Now, the CAT scans are here. Now, I changed software. I went into Ubuntu, or excuse me. And so I really can't go back through them, but I do still have all the files. However, this shows, remember, excuse me, this was the fingertip right here. And that's the actual bone that's in there when it's scanning up through here and looking at it. I mean, it was a very, very well done CAT scan. And where is it? Back here, remember I told you the back of it? Here, let me get a better shot here. Here we go. Oops. There it is. No. All right, so here's the fingertip. All right, this is the same fingertip. And remember I told you I broke this piece off. That was still there. You look at them. They're identical. Take your time and look. What's the difference? What do you see as a difference there? All right, the architecture of them looks exactly the same. There's a little tiny hole right there. There's a little tiny hole right there. There's a center and there's a core around. I mean, there's a core and there's a surrounding it. There's a core and this surrounding it. What is the difference between the two? This one's black and this one's white. Well, that is the difference, because on one side of your hand, artery runs up, on the other side, vein runs up, or runs back, basically. And again, the same as this. One side is the artery, one side is the vein. And, I mean, this is just a little piece, but this is, on your fingers, they all work the same way. And I use that same Well, let me show it to you. Okay, and this is, again, the fingertip, and you can actually see where the fingernail bed was and so forth now. And that is this fingertip again. Now, I want to just say thank you to Jesse Garant and Associates. They did 7 CAT scans for us. Absolutely fabulous job. And they did it free of charge. All I had to do was pay shipping. I sent the stuff, and they did a fabulous job, and I can't thank them enough. And it's Jesse Garant and Associates. They do huge business of, and just the nicest people you ever want to work with. And I didn't pay them. I can't imagine how nice they could be if you were paying them. Very nice people. All right, Jesse Garant, thank you, and Fabio, thank you. You people were just a pleasure. Okay, this was on that DNA test. This is the hand, which is the palm of a left hand. You have the same bumper looking pad around you, and then the tendon runs down exactly the same way. You see, whoops, you see this? It's a different type of a texture than the palm of your hand. It's like a bumper pad. Now, this right here, this is the same grip skin, the silvery looking stuff that peels off, and it peeled off of that gigantic fingertip. Now, which I showed you, the fingerprints are still in. This is a much smaller one, way smaller. The other one, the size of the fingertip, which this one is about 7.5, excuse me, about 8 inches long, somewhere around there. The other one is 30 inches long. A huge difference. And the other one obviously is much too big to carry in here, but this one I can show you at least a fingertip and some of the other parts. This, excuse me, is a knuckle. Now, this is the bone ball of the knuckle. And what's cool about this is this side eroded away all the way down to the bone. That's muscle up here, and tendon, that's the tendon. This side here is the tendon that runs down, and that is the covering still of the muscle. You see that? It covers the bone ball. See, on this side it's all eroded away, and this side it's still got complete articulation. Isn't that cool? And that was like a bone ball, and it went here. The bone is broken away now. It's smashed off or cracked off. I believe, yeah. I don't know whether the bone came this way or went that way, and this is tendon. I think this is tendon material. There's a lot of work to do looking into this, but it is what it is. They all came out of the same hole, and it's all been DNA tested. It is what it is. These are giants, and this one here would have been, I don't know, 30, 40 feet tall, somewhere around there, not nearly as big as the other one. The other one, I calculated it out to be, oh, hold on a second. I did a rough calculation here. And it's even bigger than I thought, but it's about 150 feet tall, the one from that big fingertip that I showed you. What it is, what it is. And it's DNA tested, this one and the bigger one. All right, let me just finish up with this here. That is the bone is off to the side. This is because it's a thumb. It doesn't sit right in the middle of the finger. This one is right in the middle of the finger. This is a fingertip, a regular one. My finger is 1 inch across the top distance, the longest one, and it's 1 1/4 for my thumb. So this is 30 inches long. So this would be a 1 inch on my hand, 30 inches on that size there. Now, you do the math to how big and tall that guy's going to be. I'm 5'10", so you can figure out how tall that guy's going to be. Now, remember these spots right here and that little pad right there. Of course, the finger nail, and I showed you the fingerprints. And these little spots are what's called the tendon of the flexor digitorum profundus. And there's so many tendons coming up here, as you will see right now. Let's go look at the anatomical. All right, we're going to home in on a couple things here. But remember I showed you this is exactly what this is right here. Now there's still a tendon ball attached to that one. But there should be a zillion of them in every one of these little pockets. We're going to come in closer and look at it in a second. So that is what this is right here. You see it's got that little hook in it. Every one of them has the same thing. Now, don't forget, this is a complete circle. I showed you this here before. And that is that exact complete circle right there. All right? And on the other side, the same thing here. It's right there. All right? You see it? I can't hold it up much longer. And anyway, this is that's what it is. Now, let's home in on a couple of spots. All right, you saw the bone and the muscle fibers around it before, and the knuckle. Now, this is what the tendons look like running up to your fingertips. Now, there's a bazillion of them. All right, they run all the way up. See them all? I don't know if you can see them that well. Up here, here's the best one up the top there. Hold on. Right up there. You see what's running out there? This is the little apical tuft. And all of those fibers run into and lock into that apical tuft. There's just a bazillion of them, and that gives you so much strength in your fingertips. It's incredible, and that's what I've been showing. Okay, don't forget, CAT scanned, DNA tested, anatomist verified. There's no question that it fits every criteria. This was also on that DNA test. Excellent quality DNA. I took it right out of the red blood of the flap of the bottom of the lung, human lung, a left human lung. That's the pleura of the lung. Again, I believe these all died in a flood, and that's why it's so flat on the back of them. They all died in what I consider to be a hot water flood, and that created the conditions for them when they dried out to become solid stone. I've made mud fossils, and they're not hard to make. They're very easy to make, and they're very simple to make. And it's what they do. Now, I don't have any here that I made. I think I can't remember what I did with them, to be honest with you. But they're easy to do. Just boil up some meat, and then let it dry out in a salty conditions, saltwater conditions. Leave it to sit for, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. I think I did with mine, a little longer. And then I let it dry out, and then I flushed it with clean water, and then let it dry out after that. And it came, rubbery hard. It became almost like leathery belt-like material. And then it got harder and harder and harder, and eventually it would get to be a stone. But all this collagen stuff is a fabric, so it's not. It doesn't just. It just doesn't. I mean, it has a strength to it. And let me show you what. I'm going to get too deep into it, and you're going to lose interest. Let me just tell you one thing. If they're talking about some fish being the biggest thing that was ever on the earth, they're just out of their minds. That thing right there was 150 feet or more, and that's a human. And it was all what was written appears to have all been true because. Well, let me show you what's out in the dragon in the desert. All right, they talk about big creatures. Well, let me tell you something. This is North Africa. This is the eye of the Sahara. This is a gigantic fish. I don't know how it got here. I am not going to speculate on that. It is a gigantic fish, and that's its tail, and that's its fin, and it was being attacked. And its vital flesh up here was invaded and eaten away at. Look at this. You see that? Look at that. And that got eaten away by the venom that was spit at it from this dragon up here. And here is the stuff that it was spit at it and combusted as it came down against that fish. This is a very serious, nasty stuff. Now, that was from this dragon's throat, right here. This is the dragon. Now, take your time. Just calm down. Look at it slowly. This right here runs all the way down his body until his belly. There is a cut in here, and I will show you that cut. Now, this stuff here, let me make sure I didn't knock you out of the way here. Okay, you can see that. All of this stuff is running off fluids from a dead, decaying body. All coroners will tell you that if a body decays, it pushes out its fluids, the bodily fluids, and they run off and surround the body, just exactly like this. And this is exactly the colors they're going to be, red and black, because that's the colors of blood. One of them's oxygenated and one of them's deoxygenated. So let's focus on the neck, coming all the way down. And of course that's the head and the big bumpy nose they have. And then it runs all the way down this way. This is the little flashy stuff they have on the ones you see in China and Asia and in that area. Now, let's home in on the scales. All right, here's his throat. Remember, this is, and I think they call this the Dragon River or something. Now, let's look down all of this. These are scales. They're not just mountain ranges. Those are scales. All right, and they coat this whole entire throat. You see it? And there's little hinges here and there, so that they can do this. Otherwise it would be one big solid plate. But you see them? They're nicely hinged. But they have a tremendous amount of armor. And you see this is some kind of special metals or minerals or something here. And as it comes down, it's just nothing but dragon scales, because there's nothing but a dragon underneath those scales. And it comes way down to here. Now, there's going to be a place where it's cut. And here it is. Boom, right there. You see that? All of a sudden, everything's interrupted. See it? Straight across. And this is where all the blood ran out from. There must be an artery right here somewhere. I guess it would be right there. Or right in this area, but wherever. Now, you can see there's all this green growth. Anytime you have red blood, you have green growth. And that's what this is. This was an artery here. And then it just continues on down. So, there's the cut across his throat. This dragon is just absolutely, stunningly, astoundingly gigantic, all the way across North Africa. These are the legs. This is the body, and I went through the entire body. It's an avian creature. It has a cloaca, which means that's what birds have, and it comes all the way down. And this is the tail, way back here, still running off the fluids, just like the front. You see it? These are dragon scales. So this is a gigantic creature that ran all the way across North Africa, and and it appears to have been trying to kill this fish in some form of a duel to the end. I don't know what else to say. And I believe at the same time, all of this stuff washed out into the ocean. You see it from here? I think this whole thing was a sea. This whole thing was some kind of an inland sea. And I think this was Atlantis. Some of the old maps show this as being Atlantis. Even Herodotus does. And when it collapsed, all of this stuff ran out over the edge of the straits, because they said it was right outside the straits, and everybody assumed it was the Straits of Hercules, or the Straits of Gibraltar, whatever you want to call it. Now, I say it was this straits right here, and all of that stuff ran out, and Plato says they would never speak of mud again. So much stuff ran, but it looks like it must have run out at the same time they were battling, because some of it's gone over the top, it looks like, of the fish, and over his tail, and swished around the whole thing at the same time. Or maybe it was after, I don't know. But I would, that one must have been some kind of crashing, fighting, crushing blows going on here. I mean, look at the size of these things. That's over 1,000 miles long. So if they're talking about something 50, 60 feet, 100 feet being the biggest thing on Earth, yikes, they got some thinking to do. And this all ran off here and created the Cape Verde Islands. You can see the structure of it. It hit like here, and then eventually it piled up, and then it just went off to the side. That's all Plato's mud. I call that the Plato Mud Islands. All right, so time to start over and start thinking and start paying attention instead of running and hiding. These are the people we're relying on them for paleontology, for our history, for everything that we rely on as truth. So it's the obligation and duty of a teacher specifically to look into this and investigate this thoroughly. Not just say, oh, this can't be, it's just silly, and walk away, which is exactly what I've gotten from Yale, from Harvard, from Johns Hopkins, from every single university. And I've gone, and I tried all of them, trust me. And there is no stomach for reality at this moment. So if you don't stand up and start to push this around and say, I want something done about this, because I have no voice anymore. I really have been shut down from virtually everything. And this has been for a very long time. I've known about this for, I had 6 years ago. I had all the evidence. I had the CAT scans, the DNA specimens, the fish, the dragons, the whole 9 yards. But if it's not allowed to be seen, then it's not allowed to be seen. When it's not allowed to be seen, nobody knows. Nobody knows. They laugh at you when you say something. Let them laugh. Stick up for yourself.